The night that changed my life started like every dumb decision in history, with alcohol, peer pressure, and a complete disregard for consequences. I remember the exact moment I sealed my fate. The hemlock was packed that Friday, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the distinct metallic scent that lingered wherever vampires gathered. The neon sign above the bar cast an eerie crimson glow across the room, illuminating the clear division between our worlds. Humans clustered near the entrance, vampires occupying the shadowy corners. "I'm telling you, Mateo, the peace treaty is bullshit," I said, slamming my empty glass on the sticky table. "They're just waiting for the right moment to take over. All this coexistence propaganda is exactly what they want us to believe." My friends exchanged those looks again, the ones that said, "Here goes Mateo with his conspiracy theories." But they didn't understand. They hadn't lost someone to the darkness. They hadn't watched helplessly as authorities dismissed a suspicious death as unfortunate but natural. They hadn't spent 3 years studying psychology just to understand how an entire species could manipulate human perception so effectively. Ryan, already 3 drinks ahead of me, rolled his eyes. "You know what your problem is. You've built this whole personality around hating vampires. But I bet you've never even had a real conversation with one." "Why would I want to?" "Because," Jen chimed in, her words slightly slurred, "your theories are based on fear, not facts. My roommate's dating a vampire, and he brings her flowers every Tuesday." Flowers, Mateo. Not exactly the behavior of bloodthirsty monsters planning world domination. I scoffed. Surface-level charm is literally their evolutionary advantage. They're predators who evolved to lure prey. Your roommate's boyfriend isn't bringing flowers because he's sweet. He's grooming her. Ryan's eyes suddenly lit up with mischievous intent, his gaze drifting to something, or someone, behind me. "All right, Mr. Expert, put your money where your mouth is."
"What?"
He leaned forward, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Emma Nightvale, corner booth, aristocrat vampire. I bet you don't have the guts to ask her out." I turned, trying to be subtle and failing miserably. There she was, impossibly elegant in a high-necked burgundy dress that looked like it belonged in another century, yet somehow worked perfectly with her modern, sharp bob of black hair. Unlike the younger vampires who tried to blend in with humanity through fashion, Emma embraced her otherness. Even from across the room, I could sense the weight of history around her.
"That's not just any vampire," Jen whispered. "That's old blood, like centuries old, part of the council that helped draft the peace treaty."
"Perfect," Ryan grinned. $200 says you can't get her to agree to a date." "This is ridiculous," I muttered. But my eyes were still fixed on Emma. Something about her struck me, not just her beauty, which was undeniable, but the solitude. Despite being surrounded by other vampires, she seemed utterly alone, reading a worn leather-bound book with an intensity that created an invisible barrier around her. 300, Ryan upped the ante. "And I'll stop making fun of your conspiracy theories for a month." Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was the way her eyes suddenly lifted and met mine across the room. A curious eyebrow slightly raised, as if she'd heard every word despite the impossible distance. Or maybe it was simply the culmination of 3 years of anger, looking for an outlet. "Fine," I said, standing up. "But when she rejects me and confirms everything I've been saying about their superiority complex, you owe me more than money. You owe me an admission that I've been right all along." I wove through the crowd, heart hammering against my ribs. With each step, my righteous confidence wavered. By the time I reached her table, I was acutely aware of how ridiculous this was. A human psychology student challenging a creature who had likely witnessed centuries of human folly. "Excuse me," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. She looked up from her book, dark eyes unreadable. Yes? I was wondering if you'd like to go out sometime. The words tumbled out before I could dress them up with charm or context. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air between us, like the moment before lightning strikes. Why? The question caught me off guard. I'd expected an immediate dismissal, not curiosity. Because I fumbled, the practiced speech about genuine interest evaporating. Something about her gaze made lying feel not just futile but disrespectful. Honestly, my friends bet me I wouldn't have the courage to ask you. A surprised smile touched her lips, the first crack in her composed facade. At least you're honest. Refreshingly so. She studied me for a moment longer, then closed her book. What's your name? Mateo Santos. Well, Mateo Santos, I accept. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. You, what? I said yes. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. There's a place called Moonshadow on 5th Street. Do you know it? I nodded numbly, recognizing the name of one of the most exclusive vampire-owned restaurants in Novaria. Good, she returned to her book, a clear dismissal. Don't be late. I retreated to my friend's table in a daze. Their shocked expressions mirrored my internal chaos. Did she just... Ryan began. Say yes, I finished. Apparently, Jen looked genuinely concerned. Mateo, Moonshadow isn't just exclusive, it's old-world territory. Humans don't go there unless they're, blood donors, I said flatly. Great. You don't have to go, Ryan said, suddenly serious. Bets off. This is getting weird. But there was something in Emma's agreement that needled at me, a challenge I couldn't back down from. Maybe this was my chance to prove my theories correct, to see behind the civilized mask vampires presented to the world. No, I said firmly. I'm going. The next evening, I found myself standing outside Moonshadow, dressed in the best clothes I owned, questioning every life choice that had led me to this moment. The restaurant occupied an old cathedral, its Gothic architecture emphasized rather than disguised by the renovation. Stained glass windows depicting ancient battles had been carefully preserved, though I noticed the original religious imagery had been replaced with scenes I didn't recognize. Vampires and humans in various historical periods. Some peaceful, others decidedly not. Emma was waiting at the entrance, wrapped in a midnight blue gown that made her pale skin seem to glow. Without a word, she offered her arm, which I took with only slight hesitation. The maitre d', clearly a vampire, bowed deeply to Emma, while barely acknowledging my existence. Lady Nightvale, he murmured, your usual table is prepared. The interior was a study in controlled opulence, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light across marble floors. Tables, spaced far enough apart to ensure privacy, and not a single mirror in sight. I noticed other details too. The subtle red tint to some of the drinks being served. The way certain patrons' eyes lingered hungrily on the staff. The temperature kept deliberately cool. Once seated, Emma regarded me with open curiosity. You're uncomfortable. Is it that obvious? Your heart is racing. It's quite distracting. I shifted in my seat. Sorry, my vital signs are inconveniencing you. To my surprise, she laughed, a sound like silver bells. You're not what I expected, Mateo Santos. What did you expect? Someone less confrontational. Most humans who approach vampires are either seeking thrills or have romanticized notions about immortality. I have neither, I assured her. Then what do you have? What drives a man to approach a vampire on a bet, then actually show up for the date? I considered lying, but those eyes seemed to see through pretense. I study psychology, specifically interspecies social dynamics. I have theories about vampire-human relations that my friends find paranoid. Tell me these theories. The waiter arrived with drinks I hadn't ordered. Wine for me. Something darker for her. After he departed, I took a fortifying sip and found myself speaking with unexpected candor. I believe the peace treaty is a strategic move, not a genuine desire for coexistence. Vampires are apex predators who evolved to hunt humans. It's biological imperative, not prejudice. The sudden push for integration after centuries of shadows feels calculated, like predators adapting tactics rather than changing nature. I expected offense. Instead, she looked thoughtful. An interesting perspective. Flawed, but not entirely without merit.
Flawed how?
You assume uniformity of thought among vampires. We're as divided as humans on matters of coexistence. Some view humans as mere sustenance. Yes. Others see potential equals. Most fall somewhere between. Politics is rarely simple, even for immortals. Our conversation continued through dinner, my simple pasta dish contrasting with her barely touched plate of raw meat. She asked about my studies, my family. I asked about history she'd witnessed firsthand. It was surreal, speaking with someone who described the Industrial Revolution as that noisy century, and referred to World War II as the recent unpleasantness. As the evening progressed, I found myself reluctantly fascinated. Emma wasn't just intelligent. She possessed the perspective of centuries, yet remained curious about the modern world. She spoke of watching civilizations rise and fall, with the detached interest of someone who'd seen too much to be surprised, yet asked about TikTok with genuine curiosity. After dinner, she suggested a walk through Lunar Park, a neutral zone popular with both species. The night air was crisp, stars unusually visible despite city lights. "You've been surprisingly pleasant company," she admitted, as we strolled along the illuminated path. "You sound disappointed." "Not disappointed. Intrigued. You clearly harbor resentment toward my kind, yet you engage without hostility. There's a story there." I hesitated, then decided truth for truth was fair. My sister disappeared 3 years ago. Last seen at a mixed-species club. Police found nothing, but I found a witness who described seeing her leave with someone matching vampire characteristics. The case was eventually closed as a runaway. I know better. Emma stopped walking. "I'm sorry for your loss." "I don't want platitudes. I want to understand why your kind is protected by laws that seem deliberately designed to make investigation difficult. The laws protect both species, Mateo. Without them, vampires might be held accountable when humans go missing?" Her expression hardened slightly. "Without them, we would have war. Again, is that what you want?" We stood in silence, the weight of centuries of complicated history between our species hanging in the air. Finally, she spoke again. "Come with me. There's something I want to show you." She led me to a secluded corner of the park, beneath a massive oak tree. The area felt different, cooler, quieter, as if we'd stepped slightly out of phase with the rest of the world. "What is this place?" I asked. "Sacred ground. One of the few places where vampire blood was spilled in ritual rather than violence." She turned to face me, suddenly serious. "You sought truth tonight. Mateo, are you certain you want it?" Warning bells rang in my mind, but curiosity, always my downfall, prevailed. "Yes." She stepped closer, close enough that I could see flecks of amber in her dark eyes. "The treaty you so distrust was written in blood, both human and vampire. It requires renewal, not through politics but through bond." "What kind of bond?" Her hand rose to my cheek, her touch cool, but not cold. "Blood recognizes blood. Mateo, from the moment you approached my table, I sensed something in you, a resonance I haven't felt in centuries. I should have stepped back. I should have remembered every warning about vampire mesmerism, about their ability to enthrall with voice and touch. Instead, I stood transfixed as she leaned forward. "This will hurt," she whispered, but only for a moment. Her lips, surprisingly warm, pressed against my neck. I felt a sharp pain, then a strange euphoria that made the world tilt and spin. As consciousness began to fade, I heard her whisper against my skin, "You have chosen me. Blood has witnessed. You are my eternal mate, whether you understand it or not." Then darkness claimed me. I awoke to unfamiliar sensations, silk sheets against my skin, a distant melodic sound like wind chimes, and the distinct feeling of being watched. Opening my eyes required extraordinary effort, as if my eyelids had been weighted. A Gothic bedroom materialized around me, all dark wood, rich tapestries, and impossibly high ceilings. Morning light filtered through heavy velvet curtains, creating thin golden beams that illuminated dust motes, dancing in the air. "He's awake," a female voice announced, not Emma's but similarly accented. Forcing myself upright, I discovered I wasn't alone. A younger vampire perched at the foot of the bed, regarding me with undisguised curiosity. Unlike Emma's regal demeanor, this vampire had an energetic quality. Honey blonde hair cut in an asymmetrical style, modern clothes, and a tablet computer in her hands. "Where am I?" My voice emerged as a rasp. My neck throbbed with dull pain. "Rivenmore Castle, home of the Nightvale clan." She offered a bottle of water. "I'm Talia, Emma's friend and unofficial medical consultant. How do you feel?" I snatched the water, suddenly aware of intense thirst. "Like I've been drugged and kidnapped? Is that accurate?" Talia winced. "Technically, you came willingly to the park. But yes, the rest is fairly accurate, though I'd use the term blood-bonded rather than kidnapped. It has more romantic connotations." "There's nothing romantic about being bitten against my will." I touched my neck, finding a bandage. "The bite was unfortunate but necessary once Emma recognized your blood signature." Talia's clinical tone did nothing to soften the violation. "You activated a blood covenant, quite rare these days, even among traditionalists." "I didn't activate anything. I asked her to dinner on a bet." "Intent is irrelevant in blood matters. The ancient magic responds to compatibility, not conscious decision." She consulted her tablet. "Your vitals are stabilizing nicely. The transition is progressing without complications." "Transition?" Alarm shot through me. "Am I becoming a vampire?" Talia laughed. No. The covenant doesn't transform. It binds. You remain human but connected to Emma through blood. Think of it as a metaphysical tether." Before I could demand more explanation, the bedroom door opened. Emma entered, followed by 3 older vampires whose expressions ranged from disapproval to outright hostility. "Leave us," one of them commanded Talia, who quickly gathered her things. As she passed me, she whispered, "Stay calm. Say little." Then she was gone. Emma approached the bed, her face carefully neutral. "Mateo, these are elders of the Nightvale clan. They've come to assess the situation." "What situation? The one where you assaulted me and brought me to your lair against my will?" The eldest vampire, white-haired but imposing, sneered. "This is the human you've bound yourself to?" He speaks without deference. "Deference is earned," I shot back, "not granted to kidnappers." Emma gave me a warning look. "Mateo, this is Lord Kale, head of the Nightvale Council, and these are Elders Mira and Vance." Kale approached, his movement so fluid it seemed he glided rather than walked. "Do you understand what has transpired, human?" "Not really. Something about a covenant I didn't agree to." "Blood agreements require no verbal consent," Kyle explained with exaggerated patience. "They exist beyond modern constructs of permission. Your blood called to Lady Emma's, activating an ancient bond not used in 4 centuries. Then unactivate it." "Impossible," Mira interjected. "Blood covenants are permanent." I looked to Emma, searching for any hint of remorse or explanation. Her expression remained impassive, but something in her eyes, uncertainty, perhaps, gave me pause. This bond endangers our position, Kale continued. Humans already distrust us. A council member taking a human mate without the proper diplomatic channels will be seen as provocative. Then release me and pretend it never happened, I suggested. Vance, who had remained silent, finally spoke. The bond is already registered in the blood archives. Magic leaves traces that cannot be hidden. Emma straightened her posture. Suddenly, every inch the aristocrat. The covenant is legitimate under ancient law, which supersedes council regulations. I have claimed my mate as is my right as a Night Vale. The word mate sent a chill through me. This was moving too fast. From a bet to a date to some mystical forced marriage in less than 48 hours. I need to go home, I said firmly. Now. You are home, Kale replied coldly. The covenant requires proximity during the initial binding period. Separation could kill you both. Emma turned to the elders. I request privacy to explain the situation to my mate properly. After a tense moment, Kyle nodded. Very well. The council will reconvene tomorrow to discuss the broader implications. His gaze fixed on me. Remember your position, human. You have been granted an honor many would die for. When they left, Emma's rigid posture softened slightly. She sat on the edge of the bed, maintaining careful distance. I owe you an explanation, she began. You think? I didn't bother hiding my anger. You bit me, kidnapped me, and apparently married me without consent. In human terms, that's a crime spree. I didn't intend for this to happen, she said quietly. When you approached me at the hemlock, I sensed something unusual about your blood, a resonance I recognized from ancient texts, but never expected to encounter. I accepted your dinner invitation to confirm my suspicions. And what were those suspicions? That you carry the blood signature of the Bright Song lineage, humans who once shared blood bonds with the original vampire ancestors. It's incredibly rare, thought extinct centuries ago. I laughed bitterly. So what? I'm some special bloodline, and that gives you the right to claim me? No. Emma's voice sharpened. It means your blood called to mind through magic older than modern law. When we stood on ritual ground in the park, the covenant activated automatically. I bit you because once initiated, the bond must be completed, or both participants suffer increasing pain until death. Convenient excuse. Not excuse. Explanation. She stood, pacing the room. I understand your anger. By human standards, my actions were unforgivable. By vampire law, they were necessary once the bond began forming. And who gets to decide which laws matter more? Because from where I'm sitting, vampire law seems designed to override human autonomy whenever convenient. Emma stopped pacing, her expression troubled. That's a fair criticism. Our laws developed when humans were considered differently than they are now. You mean when we were just food? Yes, she admitted, surprising me with her candor. But things have changed, are changing. This bond, unexpected as it is, might be part of that change. I studied her, trying to see beyond the beautiful, inhuman facade to whatever lay beneath. What happens now? Now we learn to navigate this bond. You'll stay at Rivenmore while your body adjusts to the blood exchange. I'll teach you about our laws, our history, things you need to know as my... She hesitated. Prisoner? I suggested. Mate, she corrected firmly. Whether either of us planned it or not. And if I refuse, if I try to leave? Her expression softened with what looked like genuine regret. Then we both suffer. The bond creates physical dependence in its early stages. Separation causes pain, then organ failure, then death. I closed my eyes, trying to process the insanity of my situation. Yesterday, I was a normal psychology student with trust issues. Today, I was magically shackled to a vampire aristocrat in some mystical blood marriage. I need time to think, I finally said, alone. Emma nodded. Of course. Rest today. We'll talk more when you're stronger. She moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Matteo, I am sorry for the manner of this bond, if not for the bond itself.
After she left, I did what any rational person would do in my situation. I tried to escape.
The castle, unsurprisingly, proved challenging to navigate. Medieval architecture combined with supernatural security created a labyrinth that constantly redirected me back to my starting point. After my third attempt ended at the same ornate staircase, I slumped against a wall in frustration.
It's a spatial enchantment.
Talia's voice came from behind me.
Unless you're keyed into the castle's magic, you'll never find the exit.
I turned to find her leaning against a doorframe, looking amused.
Is everything here designed to trap people?
Not people. Just those who haven't been properly introduced to the castle. She pushed off the wall. Hungry? The kitchen's this way, and I make a mean omelet. Having little choice, I followed her through a series of corridors to a surprisingly modern kitchen. While Talia busied herself with cooking, I peppered her with questions. How long have you known Emma?
Only about 40 years,
she replied, cracking eggs with expert precision. I'm practically an infant by Night Vale standards. And what exactly is your role here?
Officially, I research blood magic and its modern applications. Unofficially, I'm Emma's connection to the modern world.
She's brilliant, but tends to get stuck in outdated thinking patterns. Like kidnapping humans and forcing blood bonds? Talia winced.
That wasn't planned. Emma's been researching the ancient covenants for decades. Academic interest only. No one expected to find a compatible human, especially not one who would walk right up and introduce himself.
She slid a perfect omelet in front of me. Despite my situation, hunger won out, and I took a cautious bite.
So what makes my blood special?
I asked between mouthfuls. Genetic markers that resonate with vampire blood. Your ancestors likely participated in the original peace rituals, thousands of years ago. She tilted her head curiously. Did you ever notice anything unusual about yourself? Heightened senses? Unusual resilience to illness?
I thought about it. I've never been sick, not even childhood colds, and I've always had good night vision. But that's just genetics, not magic.
The line between the two is thinner than most realize. Talia leaned forward. Look, I know this situation is far from ideal, but you might want to consider the possibilities before rejecting it entirely. What possibilities? Being a blood bag with benefits? She rolled her eyes. Being the first successful human-vampire bond in centuries. Do you have any idea how significant that is politically? The peace treaty has been weakening for decades. This could strengthen it. I didn't sign up to be a political symbol. Few who change history ever do. She gathered our plates. Just think about it, and maybe give Emma a chance to explain more. She's not the monster you think she is. Over the next few days, I settled into an uneasy routine. By day, I explored the parts of the castle I could access, which expanded as Emma introduced me to different areas. By night, we shared uncomfortable meals where she attempted to educate me about vampire culture and history. I learned that the Night Vale clan was among the oldest in Europe, having migrated to America during the early 1900s. I learned about the complex hierarchy of vampire society, the political factions divided between traditionalists and progressives, and the fragile nature of the current peace. What I didn't learn was how to break the blood bond. A week into my captivity, I was browsing the castle's library, an impressive collection spanning centuries, when I found a section on blood rituals. Most texts were in languages I couldn't read, but one leather-bound volume contained illustrations clear enough to understand. Depictions of humans and vampires engaged in ceremonial blood exchanges. I was so engrossed that I didn't notice Emma's arrival until she spoke. "The Crimson Codex," she said, making me jump. One of the few surviving texts from the First Accord. The what? The original peace treaty, signed over 3,000 years ago. She approached, cautiously, as if afraid I'd bolt. It ended the first war between our species. There's remarkably little about these wars in human history books. Emma smiled sadly. History is written by survivors, Matteo, and humans who knew the truth rarely survived. She gestured to the book. May I? When I nodded, she sat beside me and turned to a specific page showing a human woman and male vampire with their wrists pressed together, blood flowing between them. Elias and Lyra, she explained. My ancestor and his human mate. They created the first blood covenant as a way to end the bloodshed between our kinds. How does forcing one human into magical marriage stop a war? It wasn't forced. Lyra chose the bond to demonstrate that coexistence was possible, that humans and vampires could share life rather than take it from each other. Emma's fingers traced the illustration reverently. Their bond created a magical precedent that allowed for the treaty magic to hold. For centuries, their descendants maintained similar bonds, strengthening the peace. Until humans forgot. Until science replaced magic in your worldview, and the bloodlines that could form covenants became diluted or died out. She looked at me with new intensity. Until you walked into the hemlock and rewrote possibility. I closed the book, uncomfortable with the weight of history she placed on my shoulders. I'm just a psychology student who lost a bet. Emma, not some mystical peacekeeper. Perhaps you're both. Before I could respond, the library doors burst open. Kyle entered, flanked by guards I hadn't seen before. The council has reached a decision, he announced without preamble. The human will be tested to verify his bloodline. If authentic, the bond may be permitted to stand, under supervision. Emma rose, her posture defensive. The bond requires no permission to stand. It exists beyond council authority. Nothing exists beyond council authority. Cale countered smoothly. Particularly matters that might destabilize our society. I stood as well, tired of being discussed as if absent. What kind of test? Cale's cold gaze shifted to me. A simple blood ritual. If you carry Brightsong blood, it will respond to the ancient markers. If not, his smile didn't reach his eyes. The bond will be dissolved. Along with Matteo's life, Emma added sharply. Breaking a true covenant kills both participants. A risk I'm willing to take, Cale replied. I'm not, I said firmly. I didn't ask for this bond, but I'm not suicidal enough to let you experiment on breaking it. Your consent is irrelevant, human. Council has spoken. Emma stepped between us. I invoke right of protection, as is bonded. I have sole authority over Matteo's blood. Tension crackled in the air, literally, as I noticed small sparks of bluish energy flickering around Emma's clenched fists. Whatever was happening, it was clearly more than mere politics. Cale's eyes narrowed. You would challenge council for a human? I would uphold ancient law against modern overreach. After a tense standoff, Cale inclined his head slightly. Very well, but this isn't finished. Emma, the human presents risks you seem blind to. He turned to leave, adding over his shoulder, the blood moon approaches. Traditional testing will occur then, with or without your cooperation. When he was gone, Emma's shoulders sagged slightly. She turned to me, face drawn with worry. We have 2 weeks to prepare you. Prepare me for what? For proving your bloodline without dying in the process. That night, for the first time since my arrival, Emma brought me to her private chambers, not for any romantic purpose, but because they contained the only space in the castle completely free from surveillance. Her rooms surprised me. Where I expected Gothic extravagance, I found tasteful minimalism, clean lines, neutral colors, and modern furnishings that contrasted with the castle's medieval exterior. The only traditional elements were a wall of ancient books and a collection of what appeared to be archaeological artifacts displayed in museum-quality cases. Nice place, I commented, trying to mask my nervousness. Not what I expected.
I've lived through enough design periods to appreciate simplicity, she replied, securing the door with both physical and, if the muttered words and glowing symbols were any indication, magical locks. Is all this security necessary?
Yes.
She gestured for me to sit on one of two gray armchairs positioned near a fireplace. What I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room. Lives depend on it. Yours, most immediately. I sat, suddenly very aware of the serious turn our situation had taken.
I'm listening. Emma remained standing, too agitated to sit. Kyle isn't merely concerned about protocol or tradition. He actively works against human-vampire cooperation. The tests he proposes aren't to verify your bloodline. They're designed to break our bond and likely kill you in the process.
Why would he risk killing you too?
He wouldn't.
He's found texts suggesting the bonded vampire might survive if certain precautions are taken.
She finally sat, leaning forward intently.
Mateo, the peace between our species has never been more fragile.
Kyle leads a faction that believes vampires should reclaim their position as apex predators, with humans managed as a resource rather than recognized as equals. That's the conspiracy theory I've been arguing all along, I pointed out. Yes and no, it's not all vampires, just a powerful minority. Many of us genuinely believe in coexistence. I studied her face, searching for deception and finding none.
So where do you stand in all this?
I was neutral for too long. Her gaze dropped to her hands. I've lived through 12 wars. Mateo, I've seen what happens when either species gains too much power over the other. Balance is the only path to peace. And now I've been forced off the fence. Our bond, accidental as it was, represents the kind of connection that originally enabled peace. Kale knows this. He'll do anything to prevent its legitimization. The weight of her words settled over me. What had begun as a foolish bet had somehow placed me at the center of a supernatural political crisis.
What do we do?
We prepare you. Emma rose and retrieved an ornate wooden box from a hidden safe. The blood moon ceremony is traditionally when new vampire-human arrangements are formalized. Most are simple feeding contracts or protection agreements. Our covenant is something else entirely, something Kale will try to discredit. She opened the box, revealing a vial of dark liquid and several ancient-looking scrolls. These contain the original covenant rituals, not the modified versions the Council uses. We have 2 weeks to teach you enough about vampire custom, law, and magic to survive the ceremony. And if I refuse to participate? Emma's expression softened. Then I help you escape. The bond is new enough that separation might not kill us immediately. You could have months, perhaps years, before the effects become fatal. Her offer stunned me. You'd risk death to give me freedom?
I took your choice away once. I won't do it again.
She met my gaze directly. Stay and fight with me, or leave and live what life the broken bond allows. The choice is yours. In that moment, looking into eyes that had witnessed centuries of history, I made a decision that would alter both our futures. Teach me what I need to know. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of intensive education. By day, Talia taught me vampire biology and the science behind blood magic, a fascinating blend of genetics, quantum entanglement, and what humans might call supernatural elements. By night, Emma instructed me in vampire history, politics, and the specific rituals I would face during the blood moon ceremony. I learned that vampire society operated on principles older than most human civilizations: blood rights, ancestral obligations, and magical contracts that transcended ordinary law. I learned that Emma's position on the council was hereditary, dating back to the original peace treaties, which gave her unique authority, but also unique restrictions. Most importantly, I learned that my own blood contained properties that science couldn't fully explain, markers that responded to certain vampire energies in ways that defied conventional understanding. "Try again," Emma instructed, her voice patient despite my repeated failures. We sat cross-legged on the floor of her chambers, a shallow silver bowl of mixed blood, hers and mine, between us. "I can't do this," I said, frustrated after another attempt to make the blood respond to mental commands. "Maybe I don't have the right bloodline after all." "You do." Emma took my hands, placing them over the bowl. "You're overthinking it. Blood magic isn't controlled. It's directed. Feel the connection between your blood and mine. Don't try to command it. Acknowledge it." I closed my eyes, focusing on the strange sensation I'd been experiencing since our bond began. A subtle awareness of Emma's presence, even when she wasn't in the room. A phantom pulse alongside my own. The liquid beneath my hands warmed. When I opened my eyes, the blood had separated into two distinct spirals, intertwining but never mixing completely. "I did it," I whispered, amazed. Emma's smile held genuine pride. "Yes, you did. The bright song blood responds to your will, just as it should." As the blood moon approached, my relationship with Emma evolved. The initial anger and resentment gave way to cautious respect, then to something more complicated. She wasn't the monster I'd assumed all vampires to be, nor was she the romantic fantasy humans often projected onto her kind. She was a complex being shaped by centuries of experience, sometimes coldly pragmatic, other times surprisingly vulnerable. I learned she had a dry sense of humor that emerged unexpectedly. I discovered her passion for archaeological preservation. I witnessed her fierce protectiveness toward Talia and the younger vampires in her household. And sometimes, when she thought I wasn't looking, I caught her watching me with an expression that made my heart race, in ways unrelated to fear. The night before the ceremony, Emma found me on one of the castle battlements, staring at the nearly full moon. "Tomorrow it will be complete," she said, joining me at the stone railing. "Are you ready?" "As ready as 2 weeks of crash course vampire studies can make me." I glanced at her profile, silvered by moonlight. "What happens if we succeed? If the council accepts our bond?" "Then we face the greater challenge, defining what this bond means for us. The covenant creates a connection, Mateo, but it doesn't dictate its nature. Meaning we would have choices. The traditional interpretation is romantic, eternal mates, as I first described it. But history shows other models, political allies, intellectual partners, even distant associates who maintain just enough contact to satisfy the bond's requirements." Her words offered freedom I hadn't expected. "And what do you want?" Emma turned to me, vulnerability clear in her expression. "I've existed for over 5 centuries, Mateo. I've had lovers, companions, friends, some human, some vampire. But I've never had an equal, someone connected to me through blood and choice. I don't know what form that might take between us, but I would like the opportunity to discover it." The honesty of her answer moved me, before I could respond. However, a commotion below caught our attention. Vampire guards were escorting someone, dragging someone across the courtyard. "Who is that?" I asked, leaning over the battlement. Emma's expression darkened. "One of mine. A young vampire who works in the city as a liaison with human businesses." As we watched, the captive was brought before Kale, who stood imperiously in the center of the courtyard. Even from a distance, his fury was palpable. "We should go," Emma said, already moving toward the stairs. "This concerns us." By the time we reached the courtyard, a crowd had gathered. The young vampire knelt before Kale, head bowed in submission or fear. "Treason against your kind," Kale was saying as we approached. "Sharing council secrets with human authorities." "I shared nothing confidential," the young vampire protested. "Only publicly available information about tomorrow's ceremony." Kale struck him, the blow so fast I barely saw it. You spoke to a human investigator about Lady Emma's bond. Information that could destabilize our position. I froze at the mention of an investigator. Could someone be looking into my disappearance? Emma pushed through the crowd.
What is the meaning of this, Kale? Eric is under my protection.
Your protection doesn't extend to traitors, Kale replied smoothly. He was caught speaking to a human who has been asking questions about you and your new pet. Emma's eyes narrowed. What human? Detective Santos, apparently related to your blood toy. My heart leapt. My sister had been gone for years, but my father still worked homicide. If he was investigating my disappearance, any interaction with human authorities must go through proper diplomatic channels. Kale continued. Eric has violated our most basic security protocols. I've violated nothing, Eric managed, though blood trickled from his mouth. The human had official sanction from the Joint Species Liaison Office. I followed all protocols. Kale's expression darkened. The Liaison Office exceeds its authority. Council supersedes its judgments. Not according to the treaty, I said before I could stop myself. All eyes turned to me, some surprised, others hostile. The human speaks on vampire law? Kale's voice dripped with contempt. Emma stepped protectively closer to me. My mate has been studying our ways, as is appropriate for his position.
And he is correct, came a new voice.
Talia emerged from the crowd, tablet in hand. Article 16 of the treaty explicitly grants the Joint Species Liaison Office authority to investigate disappearances across species lines, superseding internal vampire protocols. Kale's fury was palpable, but he was too skilled a politician to lose control publicly. This matter will be addressed tomorrow, along with the legitimacy of this supposed bond. He turned to his guards. Take Eric to the holding cells. His punishment will be determined after the ceremony. As the guards dragged Eric away, Emma turned to me. We need to accelerate our timeline. Kyle is making his move. Back in her chambers, Emma paced while Talia worked frantically on her tablet. Your father is investigating your disappearance, Talia confirmed. He's filed official inquiries through the liaison office. That's significant. It means he's following proper channels rather than just human law enforcement. Can we contact him? I asked. Let him know I'm alive. Emma shook her head. Not yet. Any communication now would be intercepted. Kyle would use it as evidence that you're working with humans against vampire interests.
But I am human. Not entirely, Talia murmured, eyes on her screen. Not anymore. The bond has already altered your blood chemistry. You're becoming something in between.
This was news to me. What does that mean? It means, Emma said gravely, that tomorrow isn't just about validating our bond. It's about establishing your status as neither fully human nor vampire, but something the treaty never anticipated. A true bridge between species.
Which is exactly what Kale fears, Talia added. A being who belongs to both worlds threatens the separation his faction depends on.
I slumped into a chair, overwhelmed. So, in 2 weeks, I've gone from psychology student to political revolutionary. Great. Emma knelt before me, taking my hands. Mateo, listen to me. Tomorrow will be dangerous. Kale will use every tool at his disposal to discredit our bond and, if possible, destroy it. But we have one advantage he doesn't expect.
What's that?
Your immunity. Her eyes held mine intently. The tests tomorrow include a truth compulsion, blood magic that forces vampires to speak honestly. But during our practice sessions, you demonstrated resistance to vampire influence. If you can maintain that immunity while appearing to comply.
I can lie while everyone thinks I'm magically compelled to tell truth.
I finished, understanding dawning.
I can control the narrative.
Exactly. Talia looked up from her tablet.
It's risky. The compulsion at the ceremony will be much stronger than anything we've practiced with.
It's our best option, Emma insisted. Mateo's unique blood gives him advantages no one will expect. That night, as final preparations were made, I experienced the first dream, vivid and disorienting in its clarity. I saw through eyes not my own, lived memories not my own. I was a man named Elias, a vampire in the time before modern nations. I stood on a battlefield strewn with bodies, human and vampire alike, facing a human woman whose fierce expression showed no fear despite the blood coating her armor. "Enough death," she said in a language I somehow understood, despite never having studied it. "Your kind cannot exterminate mine, nor mine yours. We are locked in eternal stalemate. Night Vale." "What would you suggest, human?" I, Elias, replied. "Centuries of hatred cannot simply be set aside." "Not set aside. Transformed." She extended her arm, drawing a dagger across her wrist. "My blood freely given, not taken. Your blood freely shared, not forced. A new covenant between equals." The scene shifted. I stood with the same woman, Lyra, before a council of ancient vampires, our wrists bound together with a cord soaked in mixed blood. "The bright-song human offers her bloodline in perpetuity." An elder intoned, "The Night Vale vampire offers protection in perpetuity. From their union, peace will flow for as long as blood calls to blood." I woke with a gasp, the dream so real I could still taste the metallic tang of blood. Emma sat beside my bed, watching me with concern. "You were dreaming of them, weren't you? Elias and Lyra." "How did you know?" "The bond grows stronger. Their memories live in our blood, yours through Lyra, mine through Elias." She touched my forehead gently. "What did you see?" I described the dream in detail. When I finished, Emma's expression was thoughtful. "The original covenant was a choice, freely made by both parties. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that. Choice matters more than blood or ritual." The day of the blood moon arrived with ceremonial solemnity. The castle's great hall had been transformed into a ritual space. Ancient symbols, drawn in what appeared to be actual blood, covered the floor. Candles cast eerie shadows against stone walls, and vampire elders in formal attire created an intimidating gallery. I was separated from Emma upon arrival, taken to a preparation chamber where Talia helped me dress in ceremonial clothes, black pants, and a white shirt made of some material that seemed to shimmer slightly in the candlelight. "Woven with silver thread," she explained, adjusting the collar. "Traditionally worn by humans entering blood contracts. It's meant to provide some protection against unintended influence." "Will it help with the truth compulsion?" "No," she admitted. "That comes from within you. Remember what Emma taught you. Acknowledge the magic, then redirect it. Don't fight it directly." She pressed something cold into my palm, a small, silver object shaped like a crescent moon. "Blood key," she whispered. "Last resort. If things go wrong, press it against any door in the castle, and it will open an escape route." Before I could ask more questions, guards arrived to escort me to the ceremony. The ritual began with formality, bordering on tedium. Ancient vampires reciting traditions in languages I didn't understand. Ceremonial exchanges of blood between council members. Invocations to forces that predated modern religion. Throughout it all, Kyle presided with cold authority, while Emma stood opposite him, her face a mask of aristocratic composure. I remained kneeling at the center of a complex blood sigil, instructed not to move or speak until addressed. Finally, Kale approached me, a silver chalice in his hands. "Mateo Santos, human of disputed status. You have been claimed through blood by Lady Emma Nightvale. Do you acknowledge this claim?" I met his gaze steadily. "I do." "The blood will confirm truth or expose falsehood." He offered the chalice. "Drink." The liquid inside was thick and dark, smelling of copper and something else, something ancient. As I drank, heat spread through my body, followed by a strange pressure in my mind, as if something were trying to pry open my thoughts. "Remember what Emma taught you. Acknowledge. then redirect. I let the sensation in, but imagined it flowing around my true thoughts, rather than through them, like a river diverted around a stone. Kale's eyes narrowed slightly. The blood compels truth. Tell us how you came to be bonded with Lady Nightvale.
I approached her at the hemlock on a bet, I said, keeping my voice steady. We had dinner the following night. During a walk afterward, our blood recognized each other, activating an ancient covenant neither of us expected. Technically true, if incomplete. I carefully avoided mentioning Emma biting me without explicit consent. And this activation was mutual, freely chosen? Here was the dangerous question. Kale sought to establish the bond as forced, which would invalidate it under both vampire and human law. Blood chooses what conscious minds cannot always recognize, I replied, drawing on phrases from the ancient texts Emma had shown me. The covenant awakened what was already destined. Murmurs rippled through the assembled vampires. I'd successfully avoided the trap, while sounding appropriately mystical. Kale's expression hardened. These are practiced words, not truth. The human has been coached. He turned to the council. I call for the blood test of lineage to verify his claimed Brightsong heritage. Emma stepped forward. As is my right, I will oversee this test. You are too personally invested, Kale countered. I will conduct the test. An elder vampire I didn't recognize rose from her seat. Tradition grants the claiming vampire authority over tests of their claimed human. Lady Nightvale shall proceed. Kyle's fury was barely contained as Emma approached me with a ceremonial silver knife. She knelt before me, our eyes level. This will hurt, she said softly, echoing her words from our first night. But I am with you. She took my hand, slicing my palm with quick precision. As blood welled, she pressed her own cut palm against mine. The contact sent electric awareness through my body, every nerve suddenly alive, every sense heightened beyond normal human capacity. Emma began speaking in that ancient language from my dream. Though I shouldn't have understood, the words translated themselves in my mind. Blood calls to blood across centuries. Brightsong to Nightvale, human to vampire, balance in all things. Reveal your truth. Show your lineage, speak your power. Our combined blood began to glow with faint, blue luminescence, spreading up our arms in intricate patterns that resembled the ritual markings on the floor. Gasps echoed through the hall. The Brightsong markers manifest, someone whispered loudly. It's genuine. Kale moved with sudden violence, grabbing Emma's shoulder and pulling her away from me. This proves nothing. A parlor trick of light and suggestion. The moment our contact broke, pain shot through me, sharp and immediate. Emma cried out simultaneously, dropping to her knees as the same agony clearly struck her. The separation response, Talia called out, rushing forward. Their bond is true. Forced separation causes mutual pain, just as the ancient texts describe. Kale wasn't finished. Then let us test the extent of this supposed bond. He grabbed my arm, dragging me toward an ornate chair that hadn't been there moments before. The throne of blood will determine final truth. No, Emma shouted, struggling to her feet. The throne hasn't been used in centuries. It's too dangerous for an unprepared human. If his blood is truly Brightsong, he will survive, Kale replied coldly. If not, then the bond is false, and no great loss occurs. Before anyone could intervene, he forced me into the chair. The moment I touched it, metal restraints sprang from the armrests, locking around my wrists. The chair itself seemed to come alive, the wood grain shifting like liquid, strange symbols appearing and disappearing across its surface. Pain beyond anything I'd experienced surged through me as the chair began extracting blood directly through my skin. I could feel it pulling not just blood, but something deeper. Memories, identity, the very essence of who I was. Through a haze of agony, I saw Emma fighting to reach me, restrained by Kale's guards. The room began to dim around the edges
as my consciousness started to fade. Then, unexpectedly, the pain shifted. As the chair drew more blood, I began seeing images, not my memories but others. Elias and Lyra, their original covenant, generations of their descendants, some continuing the blood bonds, others drifting apart. Wars between species, peace treaties, betrayals, reconciliations, a sweeping history told in blood memory. And something else, knowledge of how the chair worked, how it could be manipulated. This wasn't just ancestral memory. It was as if Lyra herself were whispering instructions across centuries. With the last of my strength, I focused on that knowledge, mentally reciting words I'd never learned but somehow knew. The chair's extraction patterns changed, the pain receded, and the restraints loosened fractionally. Kale leaned close, triumph in his eyes. The chair reveals all truth, human. It will extract your essence until nothing remains but honesty, or death. I met his gaze, suddenly calm despite the continued blood drain. You're right, Kyle. Truth emerges. I raised my voice to address the entire hall. The chair shows me everything, including your plot to sabotage the peace treaty. His eyes widened in genuine shock.
What nonsense is this?
The chair connects me to blood memories across centuries. I see you meeting with dissidents, planning to stage attacks on humans and blame rogue vampires. I see your ultimate goal, not vampire supremacy, but war that would decimate both species, leaving only your chosen few to rebuild a new order. Complete silence fell across the hall. I had no idea if what I was saying was true. It was a desperate gamble based on Emma's suspicions and my own intuition about Kale's motives, but delivered under the supposed truth compulsion of the Blood Throne. My words carried weight. Kale's composure cracked. He lies. The chair cannot access my private counsels. Blood remembers all, especially blood shed in violence. I continued, drawing on phrases from the ancient texts. Your hands are not clean, Lord Kale. The chair shows me your victims, human and vampire alike. The elder, who had supported Emma earlier, rose again. Serious accusations have been made under blood compulsion. By our law, they must be investigated.
This is absurd, Kale snarled. The human twists the chair's purpose. Then you will not object to undergoing the chair yourself, another elder suggested, to prove your innocence. While attention focused on Kale's sputtering objections, I managed to free one hand from the loosened restraint, reaching into my pocket. I found the blood key Talia had given me. Acting on instinct, or perhaps ancestral guidance, I pressed it against the chair's arm. The reaction was immediate and violent. The chair released me completely, then began to transform, wood and metal flowing like liquid until it formed a different shape entirely, a mirror-like surface that reflected not our physical forms, but something else, auras, perhaps, or the true nature of our blood. In its reflection, Emma glowed with blue-silver light. I shimmered with a similar radiance, though tinged with gold. And Kyle's reflection showed darkness shot through with red, an ugly turbulence that seemed to writhe beneath the surface. The mirror of essence, one of the elders breathed. Not seen for 10 generations. Kale backed away, but the mirror's surface suddenly extended, flowing like quicksilver across the floor toward him. Where it touched, it revealed the same darkness his reflection had shown. This is forbidden magic,
he shouted, true fear in his voice for the first time.
No,
Emma said, finally breaking free of her captors.
This is ancient truth, the original purpose of the Blood Throne before your faction corrupted it into a torture device. It reveals essence, not extracts it.
The mirror continued spreading, touching each person in the room in turn. Most vampires reflected various shades of blue or purple light. The few humans present, servants and diplomatic witnesses, showed predominantly green or gold.
What is happening?
I asked Emma, as she helped me from the chair. The original covenant contained balance mechanisms, she explained quickly. When blood magic is misused, the balance can be forcibly restored by those of Brightsong lineage. You've activated a purification ritual no one knew still existed. Kale made a desperate dash for the exit, but the quicksilver mirror flowed faster, cutting off his escape. Wherever it touched him, his skin blackened and smoked. He's been consuming forbidden blood, an elder observed with horror. Drinking from both species without consent, mixing ancient taboos for power. Arrest him, another commanded. The evidence is manifest. As guards surrounded Kale, he locked eyes with me, hatred distorting his aristocratic features. This changes nothing, human. The war is already in motion. You've merely removed one general. The next few hours passed in a blur of ritual, testimony, and diplomatic maneuvering. Kyle was taken away, his closest allies, identified by the mirror, and detained for questioning. The ceremony, disrupted by these dramatic events, was hastily concluded with a simplified version of the traditional bond acknowledgement. Emma and I, both weakened by the ordeal, were escorted to her chambers to recover. Talia fussed over us, applying healing salves to my wrists, where the chair had drawn blood, and mixing restorative potions for Emma. You should be dead, she informed me cheerfully, as she wrapped bandages around my hand. No human has survived the blood throne in recorded history. Lucky me, I murmured, exhaustion making it difficult to keep my eyes open. Not luck, lineage. She glanced at Emma, who lay on a chaise nearby, similarly drained. The bond protected you both. It's stronger than anyone anticipated, possibly stronger than the original covenant between Elias and Lyra. Emma stirred. The council is in chaos. Kale's faction has been exposed, but their plans may already be in motion. We need to contact the human authorities. Already done, Talia assured her. I reached out to the liaison office while you were being treated. They're sending representatives, including a Detective Santos. My head snapped up despite my fatigue. My father is coming here? Tomorrow morning. The council granted emergency clearance given the circumstances. The weight of everything that had happened finally hit me fully. In just over 2 weeks, I'd gone from skeptical psychology student to being bound to a vampire aristocrat, uncovering a conspiracy, and activating ancient magic no one fully understood. And now my father, who had been searching for me all this time, was about to walk into this supernatural political nightmare. He's going to kill me, I groaned. Or try to kill you. Possibly both. Emma managed a weak smile. We'll explain everything. The bond is now officially recognized. He can't legally separate us, even under human law. That's not very comforting. Rest now, Talia instructed, pushing me gently back against the pillows. You'll need your strength for family reunions and political fallout. Despite my protests, exhaustion won out, and I fell into deep sleep, this time without ancestral dreams. I awoke to sunlight and the sensation of being watched. Opening my eyes, I found my father sitting beside my bed, older than I remembered, new lines of worry etched into his face, but unmistakably him. Dad, I croaked, my voice rough from sleep. His expression cycled rapidly through relief, anger, confusion, and back to relief. Mateo, you're really alive. More or less. He reached out hesitantly, then pulled me into a fierce hug. 3 weeks. Son, 3 weeks with no word, no trace. Do you have any idea what that did to me? After your sister. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. It's complicated. So I've been told. He released me, his detective face slipping into place. I've spent the morning being briefed by vampire officials about blood covenants, ancient lineages, and political conspiracies. Care to give me your version? Over the next hour, I explained everything, from the initial bet to the blood moon ceremony. Dad listened without interruption, his expression growing increasingly troubled. "So this bond," he finally said when I finished. "It's permanent? No way to break it without killing you both?" "That's the simplified version, yes." He rubbed his face wearily. "And you're... what exactly now? Still human? Part vampire?" "Something in between. Still figuring that out." A knock at the door interrupted us. Emma entered, dressed simply in black pants and a gray sweater, the most casual I'd ever seen her. She hesitated at the threshold, clearly uncertain of her welcome. "Detective Santos," she greeted my father formally. "I apologize for interrupting." My father stood, studying her with the intense scrutiny he usually reserved for suspects. "Lady Nightvale, I have questions about your involvement with my son." "I expect you do." She entered fully, closing the door behind her. "I owe you both explanations and apologies." What followed was one of the most surreal conversations of my life. My vampire bondmate and my detective father discussing the metaphysical, legal, and ethical implications of blood magic and supernatural politics. Dad's questions were pointed but fair. Emma's answers forthright and occasionally remorseful. "I never intended to activate a covenant," she explained. "But, once initiated, completing it was the only way to prevent mutual harm." "Yet you never contacted human authorities," Dad countered. "Never informed his family. The politics made that dangerous until Kale was exposed. I regret the pain this caused you." Dad turned to me. "And now? What do you want, Mateo? If there's any way to break this safely..."
I'm not sure there is, I admitted. But even if there were... I glanced at Emma, finding her watching me with careful neutrality that didn't quite hide vulnerability. "I'm not sure I'd want to." His eyebrows rose. "You can't be serious."
"The bond has shown me things, Dad. Important things about vampire-human relations, about the fragility of the peace. Maybe this happened for a reason. Stockholm Syndrome happens for a reason too," he muttered. Emma flinched slightly at that, but held her ground. "Detective Santos, your son is free to leave Rivenmore at any time. The bond requires periodic proximity, not constant companionship. He can resume his studies, live independently, make his own choices. I would never hold him against his will." Dad studied her for a long moment, then sighed deeply. "This isn't what I expected when I finally found you, Mateo. But then, nothing has been what I expected since your sister disappeared." A thought struck me suddenly.
Dad, did you ever consider that what happened to her might be connected to Kale's conspiracy? If he's been working against the peace treaty for years?
My father's expression darkened. "That possibility has already been suggested by the liaison office. Kale's residence is being searched as we speak. If there's evidence connecting him to Teresa's disappearance..." Emma straightened. "I'll ensure you have access to any findings. Detective, the Nightvale resources are at your disposal." The three of us continued talking through the morning, gradually moving from crisis management to tentative planning. By afternoon, a fragile understanding had been reached. I would return to university, living primarily in human society, but maintaining regular contact with Emma to satisfy the bond's requirements. Dad would work with the liaison office to investigate Kale's possible connection to Teresa's disappearance. And Emma would use her position on the council to advocate for stronger cooperation between species. As my father prepared to leave, having arranged for my return home the following day, he pulled me aside for a private word.
"Are you sure about this, Mateo? Really sure? Because if you're being coerced in any way..."
"I'm not," I assured him.
"The situation is bizarre, I know, but I'm making my own choices now."
He studied my face carefully, his detective's instincts searching for deception. Finding none, he nodded reluctantly. "Your mother would say you always had to learn things the hard way." "Must run in the family," I replied with a small smile. "You're not exactly known for taking the easy path either." He hugged me again, then stepped back, shoulders straightening as he reassumed his professional demeanor. "I'll see you tomorrow. Try not to get ritually married to any other supernatural beings in the meantime." After he left, I found Emma in her study, reviewing documents related to Cale's case. She looked up when I entered, setting aside her work. "Your father is a formidable man," she observed. "I see where you get your stubborn streak." "One of my better qualities," I agreed, taking a seat across from her. "So, what happens now? With us, I mean?" Emma leaned back, considering the question carefully. "That depends on what you want, Matteo. The bond exists whether we wish it or not, but its shape is ours to define." "And what do you want?" "I meant what I said on the battlements. I want to discover what it means to have an equal, someone connected to me through both blood and choice." She met my gaze directly. "But I've lived centuries making my own decisions. I won't start our relationship by making yours for you." "Relationship," I repeated, testing the word. "That's what this is now?" "If you wish it to be." A hint of vulnerability crept into her voice. "The covenant creates a bond, but not necessarily affection. That must grow naturally, if at all." I considered everything we'd been through. The forced beginning, the gradual understanding, the shared danger, and the moments of unexpected connection. 2 weeks ago, I'd approached her on a foolish bet, certain all vampires were manipulative predators. Now, "Emma," I said carefully, "if you could remove the covenant right now, with no consequences, would you want me to choose again?" Her expression softened. "I would never wish to bind anyone against their will. But—" She hesitated, then continued with rare openness. "Having known you, even briefly, I would hope you might choose me anyway." I moved around the desk, taking her hand. The contact sent the now familiar warmth through our bond, a gentle hum of recognition rather than the desperate pull of earlier days. "I don't need to choose again," I told her. "I know where I belong now." The next morning, as I prepared to return temporarily to human society, Talia presented me with 2 gifts, a small vial of Emma's blood, "For emergencies only," she instructed seriously, and a business card. "What's this?" I asked, examining the elegant design. "Night Vale Santos Consultancy," printed above the words, "Interspecies Relations and Conflict Resolution." Talia grinned. "Emma's idea. She thought your psychology background combined with your unique position might create opportunities to help others navigate the complicated space between our worlds." "A vampire-human counseling service?" I laughed. "That's either brilliant or insane." "The best ideas are usually both." She squeezed my shoulder affectionately. "You've changed things here, Matteo, more than you realize." As I left Rivenmore Castle that day, Emma beside me, I reflected on the bizarre journey that had brought me here, from a cynical conspiracy theorist to a living bridge between species. The future remained uncertain, filled with challenges both personal and political, but for the first time since my sister's disappearance, I felt purpose beyond anger. Emma must have sensed my thoughts through our strengthening bond, because she took my hand, her touch grounding me in the present. "Having second thoughts?" she asked softly. "Just reflecting on the universe's sense of humor," I replied. "From a stupid barbet to eternal bloodmate. Not exactly the future I planned." She smiled, a real smile that transformed her aristocratic features into something warmer, more human. "The best covenants are never planned, Matteo. They're discovered." Looking back at the castle, then forward to the city where human and vampire worlds uneasily coexisted, I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity and wonder of it all. "Well," I said, squeezing her hand, "at least I won the original bet.